continental shelf in the same area. Either we keep them or we lose them to China. The root cause of the South China Sea dispute is China's 9-9 claim, which gobbles up large areas of the EEZs of Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. If you look at the map, you can easily see why. That's the 9 lines, and you see there that's the 9 lines, and these are the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, Malaysia again, Indonesia, and Vietnam. These are the high seas in the South China Sea, and the 9 lines of China gobble everything within those lines. That's the 9 lines map submitted by China to the UN on 7 May of 2009. China did not explain the legal basis for the dashes. The dashes are no fixed coordinates. The Philippines and other countries promptly protested. That map was attached to a note verbal, and this is the note verbal of China to the UN. China's indisputable sovereignty over the islands in the South China Sea and the adjacent waters, and enjoys sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the relevant waters as well as the seabed and subsoil. Now, China does not want to explain what is the meaning of adjacent waters, relevant waters. These are not terms of UNCLOS. So, to divine the meaning of these terms, we have to look at the activities of China in the South China Sea. In 1988, China seized Subi Reef from the Philippines. Subi Reef is here. It's in the high seas. It's a low tide elevation outside of our EEZ, but within our extended continental shelf. Under international law, a low tide elevation is the subject to sovereignty. Only the adjacent coastal state has a right to reclaim or to create artificial islands on that low tide elevation, but China seized it in 1988. You will not see this in the news report because we didn't even know that China seized it in 1988. In 1995, this one you will remember this, China seized Mischief Reef from the Philippines. Mischief Reef is about 125 nautical miles from Palawan. It is a low tide elevation. At high tide, it's totally submerged. And under UNCLOS, it's also only the Philippines that can reclaim this or exploit the natural resources of Mischief Reef. So, according to China, under the 9 lines, it can seize this from the Philippines. In 2011, the Philippines put up for bidding for foreign companies to explore areas 3 and 4. This is in the reed bank. And on July 4, 2011, China protested and sent a note verbal to the Philippines stating that the Chinese government urges the Philippine side to immediately withdraw the bidding offer in areas 3 and 4, refrain from any action that infringes on China's sovereignty and sovereign rights. In other words, China claims sovereignty and sovereign rights over area 3 and 4, deep within our EEZ. That's the meaning of the 9 lines, were the activities of China. Since 2011, Chinese Coast Guard vessels have been harassing our survey ships that go to reed bank to explore. This is Malampaya. The 9 lines cut through Malampaya. Malampaya is the largest operating gas field in the Philippines. It supplies 40% of the energy requirement of Luzon, and in 10 to 12 years, Malampaya will run out of gas. We have to develop reed bank, but we cannot develop it because the Coast Guard vessels of China prevent our survey ships from exploring the reed bank. In 2012, China published this map. China called it the location for part of open blocks in waters under the jurisdiction of the People's Republic of China, available for foreign cooperation in 2012. In other words, China auctioned this off in 2012. This is Vietnam, Hainan, and this is the EEZ of Vietnam, the extended continental shelf of Vietnam. So these waters are within the EEZ and extended continental shelf of Vietnam. China auctioned it off. So that's the meaning of 9 dash lines, China claims ownership of the waters within the EEZ of Vietnam. In 2013, China published a new map of China, and it added a 10th dash on the eastern side of Taiwan. China says the 10 dash lines are its national boundaries without explaining the legal basis or giving the fixed coordinates. The map was published by Singamap Press, an official mapping agency of China, and we had to protest. In our note verbal to China of June 7, 2013, the Philippines stated it strongly objects to the indication that the 9 dash lines are China's national boundaries in the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. We had to protest because what is enclosed by your national boundaries constitute your national territory, and we cannot allow that. That's the map that China published in 2013. The 10th dash was added here. This is Taiwan, so the 9 dash lines are still growing. If you look at the legend of the map, this is the shading here. And these Chinese characters mean national boundary. So China calls this as its national boundaries, the same shading as the shading of the continental boundary of China. So China treats the waters here in the same way it treats the waters at the land within its continental boundaries. That's the meaning of the 9 dash line. In 2012, China seized Scarborough Shoal from the Philippines. Scarborough Shoal is 124 nautical miles from the coast of Zambales. It's high tide elevation. High tide protrudes 1.2 meters above the water. There was a standoff between Chinese Coast Guard vessels and Philippine Coast Guard vessels. From April to June of 2012, the Americans brokered an agreement. Both sides agreed to mutually withdraw. We withdrew, China did not withdraw, and up to now, China's Coast Guard vessels are still there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, throughout the year. So that's the meaning of the 9 dash lines of China. They will seize Scarborough Shoal from the Philippines. In 2013, the National Security Advisor of Malaysia posted this in his website, and he said, this small island is not a disputed territory, but a foreign ship which came here as intruded into our national waters. That's the foreign ship, the Haijing 1123. It anchored on Lucuña Shoals April 2013 and has stayed there up to now, never left. So 6 months after China finally told the Philippines, in November of 2012, China told the Philippines that the Chinese Coast Guard vessels will permanently stay in Scarborough Shoal. 6 months after that, China seized Lucuña Shoals from Malaysia. In 2014, China, through Hainan province, issued a fisheries regulation. Hainan says, under the regulations, these are the waters administered by Hainan. The rest of the waters of the 9 dash lines are administered by Guangdong province. That's the fisheries regulation. Article 35 says, foreign fishing vessels entering the waters under the jurisdiction of Hainan to engage in fishing shall secure approval from the relevant departments of the State Council. You must secure permission from China to fish in the high seas, because the high seas are covered by those waters. And of course, we tell our fishermen, don't secure permission, because that will be conceding sovereignty to China. Let's await the decision of the tribunal for that. In 2014, China placed its oil rig within the EEZ of Vietnam, and the Vietnamese workers rioted, burned several Chinese factories. Vietnamese fishing boats sank near the oil rig after being rammed by Chinese vessels. So China, under its 9 dash lines, claims ownership of the waters here. Now, all of these acts of China, among so many others, demonstrate beyond doubt that China is claiming sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction to all the waters, fisheries, seabed, subsoil, enclosed
by the 9 dash lines. Everything within the 9 dash lines, China claims as its own. What is the effect of China's national boundaries under the 9 dash lines? The Philippines loses about 80% of its EEZ facing the West Philippine Sea, including the entire reed bank and part of the Malampaya gas field. Malaysia loses also about 80% of its EEZ in Sabah and Sarawak, facing the South China Sea, as well as most of its active gas and oil fields in the same area. These are the same gas and oil fields that have powered the economic development of Malaysia. Vietnam loses about 50% of its total EEZ. Brunei loses about 90% of its total EEZ. Indonesia loses about 30% of its EEZ facing the South China Sea in the Tuna Islands, whose waters comprise the largest gas field in Southeast Asia and the second largest in the world. So we will be left with a sliver of water as our territorial sea and EEZ. Every time our Navy ships cross the 9 dash lines, technically they're entering Chinese territory. Of course, the Chinese say there's freedom of navigation, but since China starts with the premise that they have indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea, so that freedom of navigation is a matter of courtesy and act of friendship, liberality. China can withdraw that at any time because they have indisputable sovereignty. So here, the 9 dash line is just 64 kilometers from Banabac Island, 70 kilometers from Burgess Town, and 44 kilometers from Yamin Island, our northernmost island in the Batanes. We will have a very long sea boundary with China. China continues to mass produce warships, destroyers, frigates, corvettes, and other warships at a faster rate than any other country in world history during peacetime. According to the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence, during 2014 alone, more than 60 naval ships and crafts were laid down, launched, or commissioned, with a similar number expected to the end of 2015. That's the smallest warship of China, that is ocean-going, the Type 656 corvette. This was launched last March 19. China now has 25 of these, it plans a total of 40 according to China. 20 of these can control the South China Sea. It's ideal because these are a shallow draft and they will be based in the Spratly where China is building 3 air and naval bases. Of course, China's bigger warships, they have frigates, destroyers, and aircraft carrier. They have one now and they're constructing another one. So what will China do with all of these naval assets? Well, China actually is a second navy, the Coast Guard. This is the 10,000 tank Coast Guard of China, the world's largest Coast Guard vessel in the world. There's a sister ship being constructed, and the combined Coast Guard, the Coast Guard of China is larger than the combined Coast Guard of Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So what will China do with all of these naval assets? China will use all of these naval assets to enforce the 9 dash lines as its national boundary. China this year issued its white paper, the China Military Strategy, and China said China will shift from offshore water defense to open seas protection. The white paper states the traditional mentality that land outweighs the sea must be abandoned, and great importance has to be attached to managing the seas and oceans and protecting maritime rights and interests. Protecting maritime rights and interests are the code words of China to enforce the 9 dash lines as its national boundaries. Now, under UNCLOS, these are the maritime zones. You have the territorial sea. From the low water mark, you measure 12 nautical miles, that's the territorial sea. Then, you measure 200 nautical miles, that's the EEZ, exclusive economic zone. And if you can show a natural prolongation of your continental shelf, in other words, there is no break, there is no deep trench, active trench that breaks the natural prolongation, you can claim an additional 150 nautical miles as your extended continental shelf. And beyond that,
This is the area. This is administered by the International Seabed Authority under UNCLOS. The authority has issued 27 permits to explore the area. 4 have gone to China, the highest number for any state. Now from here, at the edge of the EEZ constitute the high seas. The high seas starts from here, and all the fish here belong to mankind. Any country, landlocked or coastal, can fish here. So those are the maritime zones. The maximum that a state normally can claim is 350 nautical miles. And this applies in the South China Sea because it's not so deep. The area from the coast of China to up to 350 nautical miles do not have a depth of more than 2.5 kilometers. So this is how you measure the maritime zones of China. The maximum is only 350 nautical miles. China is claiming way beyond 350 nautical miles, as we shall see. Now, what is a low tide elevation? A low tide elevation is a naturally formed area of land. It can be a rock, reef, atoll, or sandbar, surrounded by water, above water at low tide, but submerged at high tide. In other words, at low tide you see it. At high tide you don't see it because it's submerged. That's a low tide elevation. What is the significance? A low tide elevation is part of the submerged continental shelf. It is not land. It is not territorial. It has no territorial sea. It has no territorial airspace. And if located beyond the territorial sea, it is not subject to appropriation by any state. It cannot be owned. It's not subject to sovereignty. And many of the geologic features that China has reclaimed constitute low tide elevations. And you look at that. Now, graphically, this is a low tide elevation. This is a rock above water at high tide. This is an island. Why? Because of high tide, this is submerged. So this is a low tide elevation. This one above water at high tide is entitled to 12 nautical miles. That's all it gets, territorial sea. This one is an island, so it gets 12 nautical miles. If it is capable of human habitation of its own, it's entitled to 200 nautical mile EEZ, and it's a natural prolongation of its continental shelf. It gets another 150 nautical miles here. So those are the maritime zones. What is the dispute that we have brought before the UNCLOS tribunal? Is it a territorial or a maritime dispute? It is just a maritime dispute. It's not a territorial dispute. And the most important issue we raised is whether the waters of the China's 9 dash lines can encroach on the 200 nautical mile EEZ of the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea. If we win on this issue, then it's a huge victory for us that we have added other issues that we submitted to the tribunal, but I will discuss that in passing later. But this is the main issue we raised. Because if we win here, if the 9 dash lines are struck down, then the area of dispute will be reduced drastically from 85.7% of the South China Sea to the Spratlys, the islands and their territorial sea. That's less than 5% of the South China Sea in my calculation. So we can live with a dispute for the next 100 years. But we cannot live with a dispute where China claims 85% of the South China Sea because we fish there. Our traditional fishing grounds are the Carpio Shoal, Macclesfield Bank, and the Spratlys. And we get our gas there, our energy. And we traverse that sea every day. Now, the Philippines is not asking the tribunal to rule whether China or the Philippines owns those rocks, islands above or high tide elevation. We are simply asking the tribunal what are the maritime entitlements of those rocks or islands, 0, 12, or 200. These are maritime disputes, but China is saying before the tribunal can rule that a rock is entitled to 12 nautical miles, 200 nautical miles, the tribunal must first rule who has sovereignty over the rock. That's a tricky issue that raised, because if that is correct, then the UNCLOS tribunal has no jurisdiction, because UNCLOS doesn't govern sovereignty, it governs maritime issues. Now, how do we answer
China, we are saying, if you look at Scarborough Shoal, this is Scarborough Shoal, 1.2 meters above water high tide. Not a single grass grows here. You cannot squeeze a single drop of fresh water. So it's obviously incapable of human habitation of its own. Because it's obviously capable of human habitation, it's entitled only to 12 nautical mile territorial sea. You don't have to determine who owns this to conclude that this is not capable of human habitation. Whether it's owned by China, the Philippines, or some other country, it can only generate 12 nautical miles. It cannot generate 200 nautical miles easy. We also counter China by showing this. This is Mischief Reef. It's fully submerged at high tide. Under international law, this is not capable of sovereignty. It's located beyond the territorial sea. It cannot be owned by any state. So we're telling the tribunal, you can rule that this is not entitled to a territorial sea without determining who owns this, because in the first place, it is incapable of ownership under international law. Under the UNCLOS, the basic principle is land dominates the sea. Before you can claim 12 nautical mile territorial sea, you must have land. Before you can claim an EEZ, you must have land. So China is saying, because of this principle, you must first determine who has sovereignty over the land. Now, how do we answer that? Well, we show this. The 9 dashed lines are not measured from land. They are not based from land. It's just a drawing in the South China Sea, and China refuses to explain from why and on what basis they have made these lines. So, since the lines are not based on land, they are not drawn from land, the principle that applies is the absence of land dominates no sea. Since these lines are not based on land, they cannot claim any maritime zone, because principle is land dominates the sea. You must have land before you can claim sea. Now, China, as you know, is reclaiming the Spratly. China occupies 7 reefs. It is reclaiming on all 7 reefs. But to reclaim on the 7 reefs, it's also dredging 10 other reefs. So China is actually destroying a total of 17 reefs. Now, China is saying that the primary purpose of the activities are civilian. The primary purpose is civilian, and the purpose is to provide better services to vessels from China, their neighbors, and other countries sailing the South China Sea. Provide search and rescue, disaster prevention to countries all over the South China Sea. Well, we tell China, please, no thank you, please don't do that reclamation. We don't need that reclamation. Let's go to the reclamation. This is Valley Cross Reef before the reclamation. Valley Cross Reef is about a meter above water high tide, and China has put up a radar station here upon agreement with UNESCO. In 1987, UNESCO agreed that China would build a weather station on Valley Cross Reef as part of the Global Oceanic Survey. That was the cover of China. They were putting up this radar here for weather forecasting to help the UN conduct a global oceanic survey. That weather station would later turn out to be a Chinese military air and naval base. Before China started reclaiming Valley Cross Reef, the Chinese company that's doing the dredging, China State Shipbuilding Corporation, posted this in its website and said this is the purpose of the reclamation of Valley Cross Reef. You can see a runway, a harbor for warships, hangars, and these are the strategic bombers of China, the A6K, here, the swept wing. The company said that this will be a 270-hectare reclamation. That means it will be twice bigger than Diego Garcia Island, the U.S. air base in the Indian Ocean. It will be larger than the combined area of the 20 largest islands in the Spratlys.
It will be larger than Woody Island, the largest island in the Paracels. It's only 230 hectares. So that was the intention, but it created a buzz among the netizens, and it was pulled down. But last June, China posted this in its website, released this photo and said, we have finished the reclamation, the horizontal reclamation, and this is it. You can see the runway, 3 kilometers, and the same as their plan. Admiral Harris, the US commander in the Pacific, stated a 3-kilometer runway is large enough to take a B-52, almost large enough for the space shuttle, and 3,000 feet longer than what you need to take off on a Boeing 747. And Admiral Harris said, hangars are being built here for tactical fighters. Now, that's the H-6K of China that will be most probably stationed in Filey Cross Reef. It has a range of 7,000 kilometers. It carries cruise missiles, conventionally armed or nuclear armed. So it can fly from Filey Cross Reef towards Australia, and 1,000 kilometers before reaching Australia, it can release its cruise missiles, turn back, and the cruise missiles are satellite guided, and all US military facilities in northern Australia are within range for the first time of this H-6K bomber of China. That's Johnson Reef before the reclamation. It's a low tide elevation within our EEZ. That's how it looked like. June 19, solar panels, radar dome, air threat radar, tall buildings, 4 to 5 story. Now, the Vietnamese occupied this in the 80s. In 1988, the Chinese forcibly evicted the Vietnamese, and 77 Vietnamese soldiers died in that skirmish. That's Makinan Reef before the reclamation. It's a low tide elevation within our EEZ. That's how it looked like. May 5, tall buildings. Maybe this is the command and control center for the Maritime Silk Road of China. That's Caven Reef before at the start of the reclamation. That's how it looked like. May 9. Again, those tall buildings. That's Quarteron Reef before the reclamation. It's within our EEZ. That's Quarteron Reef, May 7. Again, those tall buildings. Now, Subi Reef before the reclamation. Subi Reef is special. It's located in the high seas. It's fully submerged at high tide. So it's not land, it's not territory. It's part of the continental shelf. It's part of the high seas. But as the coastal state, since it is within our extended continental shelf, it is only the Philippines that can put up an artificial island or structure there. This is just outside the 12 nautical mile territorial sea of Pag-asa. I was in Pag-asa a few months ago, and when you're over Pag-asa about to land, you can see this. I could see Chinese dredgers, cranes, doing the reclamation work 24 hours a day. So this will be a big threat to Pag-asa. Why? Because that's as of August 4. This is a runway, 3-kilometer runway. These are dredgers. This is the channel for entry and exit. Before the reclamation, the lagoon of the lake was 22 meters deep, so it's deeper now. It's ideal for warships and submarines to be based here. So this will be a naval base of China with a runway. Just 12 nautical miles, barely outside, just outside our territorial sea of Pag-asa. And you can just imagine that they can easily block off all resupplies to Pag-asa from the Philippines, from Palawan. So that's a big worry for our military. Mischief Reef, before the reclamation, at the start of the reclamation, this reef is also ideal for our naval base. It is 26 meters deep,
as of September 17, I came across a news report of China saying that they have already reclaimed 560 hectares out of a planned 800 hectares. 800 hectares, that's twice as big as Mandaluyong City. Mandaluyong City is only 400 hectares. So what will China put there? Air base, naval base, and they can garrison thousands of Marines. This is really problematic for us. That's Mischief Reef as of September 3. You can see here the dredgers. That's the channel for the entry and exit. That's the runway. This is the latest photo. Now, here is Palawan. That's Mischief Reef. The islands that we control Pag-asa are here. So this is in between Palawan and the islands that we hold in the Spratlys. So we will have a hard time resupplying the islands that we occupy in the Spratlys because there is this big air and naval base of China in between. This is San Thomas Shoal. That's where our brave Sierra Madre is beached, manned by 12 Marines, 20 nautical miles away. Actually, we keep on resupplying this ship through small boats, and the Chinese Coast Guard cannot chase them because the Chinese Coast Guard vessels cannot follow in the shallow waters. But once there is a naval base here of China, their small boats will be swarming around a Union shoal. And our naval commanders are worried, how will they now resupply that ship? The reclamation of China violate, of course, the 2002 ASEAN-China Declaration of Conduct, which states, parties undertake to exercise self-restraint like refraining from action of inhabiting on presently uninhabited islands, reef shoals, cays, and other features. If you remember, President Xi Jinping was here recently, and he said, to preserve the peace in the South China Sea, the parties must fully comply with the Declaration of Conduct. They're the first to violate it. So they are very adept at double speak. China has an existing airfield in the South China Sea. It's in Woody Island, that's in the Paracels, the largest island in the Paracels. It is 2,700 meters long, this runway. China is extending it to 3 kilometers. It can take in any military aircraft of China. So there is one existing already, and it's here. China is building 3 air and naval bases here, and my personal assessment is China will put up an air and naval base in Scarborough Shoal soon. They will reclaim Scarborough Shoal so that they will have a triangle of air bases to enforce an ADIZ, an Air Defense ID Zone in the South China Sea. Last April, China sent its H-6K bombers to the Western Pacific here to conduct air drills for the first time. So they crossed the Bashi Channel. Last June, China conducted sea and air drills here in the Bashi Channel, and China announced that in the future it would conduct regular sea and air military drills in the Bashi Channel. Why? Because the submarines of China are stationed in Hainan Island. They cannot fire their nuclear-armed missiles from here because the range of the missiles is only 7,500 kilometers. It will not reach the US. They have to transit through the Bashi Channel, the nuclear submarines, and fire their missiles in mid-Pacific to reach the entire continental USA. So they have to protect this channel. It's their only outlet to the Pacific from this South China Sea. Otherwise, they have to cross the narrow Strait of Taiwan, where the Japanese Suryu-class submarines will be waiting for them. So an air and naval base here would be ideal to enforce the 9 dash lines. All of these bases will be used to enforce the 9 dash lines as China's national boundaries. But in particular, Scarborough Shoal, an air base here will protect, an air and naval base here will protect the Bashi Channel. It will allow China to patrol now on a longer loitering period the Western Pacific, the waters between the first island chain and Guam. They will have regular patrols now, their fighter planes, their reconnaissance planes, and their H-6K bombers. can take off from here and loiter around the Pacific a longer time. So what has happened from 1946 to 2015 in the South China Sea? Before the war, the southernmost territory of China was Hainan. There was not a single Chinese sailor or soldier stationed here in the South China Sea. Before the war, the French occupied the Paracels. During the war, the Japanese seized the Paracels and established a submarine base in Ituaba. After the defeat of the Japanese, after the end of World War II, the Chinese seized the Amphitrite group of the Paracels and seized Ituaba. So China started to move its southernmost defense perimeter southward up to Ituaba and the Amphitrite group of the Paracels. Towards the dying days of the Vietnam War in 1974, the Chinese seized the Crescent group of the Paracels from the South Vietnamese in the Battle of the Paracels. So China expanded its defense perimeter. And in 1988, China seized South Johnson Reef from the Vietnamese. 77 Vietnamese sailors died in the skirmish. 1995, China seized Mischief Reef from the Philippines. 2012, China seized Scarborough Shoal from the Philippines. 2013, China seized Vicuña Shoals from Malaysia. So the progression, the creeping invasion is towards the 9 dash lines. And in 2014-2015, China started building air and naval bases here. So with their new naval ships, naval warships, and their bases here, China now will enforce the 9 dash lines at its national boundaries. That's what's going to happen soon. And we will see Chinese task forces holding oath-taking ceremony here, 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 and here. Just like what they do in James Shoal now. Next slide. Can you go back? Sorry about that. Back, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So what is the grand design of China in the South China Sea? The grand design of China is to control the South China Sea for economic and military purposes. China wants all the fisheries, oil, gas, and mineral resources within the 9 dash lines. China is the largest fishing fleet in the world with 70,000 vessels. China needs only 7,000 vessels for the South China Sea. The rest of the vessels go all the way to East Africa to compete with European fishing fleets. China's per capita fish consumption is the highest in the world at 35.1 kilogram per year to feed 1.3 billion people, while the rest of Asia is only 21.6 kilograms per year. China is also the largest net importer of petroleum in the world. China wants the South China Sea as a sanctuary for its nuclear-armed submarines, free from surveillance from U.S. submarine hunting Poseidon planes and U.S. nuclear attack submarines. Now, the reclamations in the Spratlys are not a knee-jerk reaction to the Philippines arbitration case, but part of China's long-term grand design. As Jiang Zi, head of the Asia-Pacific Security Program at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, he said, China's wanted to do this for a long time. Now it has the dredging boats, the money, and the people, so it is doing it. Now, Mischief Reef, that's Mischief Reef. To form this reef, it took nature 30 million years. A reef like this, an atoll reef, is a sunken volcano. As the volcano sinks to the bottom of the sea over millions of years, the reef will form around the volcano, and tiny sea animals called corals form around this on top of each other until they form this reef. Now, what is the value of a reef? It is the spawning ground of fish. The larvae and egg of the fish that spawn here are carried by currents, the coast of Vietnam, China, Palawan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Sulawesi, Luzon. And that's why 20% of the fish that we catch annually in the wild in the Philippines are spawned in the Spratlys. So it's very important for our food resource. China destroyed 17 of these in less than 18 months. And these are irreplaceable. That's the dredger of China. This is the largest dredger in Asia. Look at this. This is the steel rotating cutter. It is dropped to the bottom of the sea. That's the dredger. This is the rotating cutter. It grinds and pulverizes the corals all around here. And there's the nozzle here that sucks the pulverized coral into the ship and pushed by pressure to these pipes dumped on the rim of the reef. And the reef, all the reefs here are dead because they're covered with pulverized corals now, and all the corals here are dead. This is the floating pipe of China in the Spratlys that were washed ashore in Zambales, 1 kilometer long. And China destroyed 17 reefs in the Spratlys. Next slide. Those are the dredgers working. And according to Dr. John Manos, a renowned marine biologist from the University of Miami, who has studied the marine life in the Spratlys, he said the reclamations are the most rapid permanent loss of coral reef in human history. It's terrible, terrible thing to do this. Next slide. Now, who can create artificial islands or extractors on low tide elevations in the EEZ or extended Carpio shelf? Only the adjacent coastal state. And that adjacent coastal state, of course, is the Philippines. Very important. So let's go to the actual provision on Article 60 on artificial islands, installation and structures in the exclusive economic zone. In the exclusive economic zone, the coastal state shall have the right, the exclusive right, to construct and to authorize, regulate the construction and operation of use of artificial islands, installation structures for any economic purpose. The coastal state shall have the exclusive jurisdiction over such artificial islands, installation structures. China just ignored that. There's some misconception among American analysts. They think that there's no law prohibiting China from reclaiming on these low tide elevations. There is. That's unlawful under UNCLOS. And if the Philippines put up an oil rig in the reef bank, that's an artificial structure. We are allowed to do that. It's within our zone. And that is entitled to a 500-meter safety zone. But if it is illegally installed by a third state, it's not even entitled to a 500-meter safety zone. It has no territorial sea, it has no territorial airspace. Next slide. How about the reclamations in Subi Reef, outside our EEZ but within our extended continental shelf? Artificial islands installation structures on the continental shelf. This is the article that I just read earlier. Article 60 applies to artificial islands installation structures on the continental shelf. So, Subi Reef, that's in the continental shelf outside our EEZ. It's only the Philippines that can create an artificial island on Subi Reef. China just ignored that. And that is an illegal structure. If you look at the zones, here is Mischief Reef within our EEZ. It's a low tide elevation, it's part of our submerged continental shelf. So here China has reclaimed about 560 hectares now. The Americans are correct. This is not entitled to a territorial sea, so we will sail just beside it. This is not entitled to territorial airspace, so we fly over it. They're correct. And here also Subi Reef. It's not entitled to territorial sea, it's not entitled to territorial airspace. And the other day there was an announcement in the papers here that the Obama administration has given the green light for a freedom of navigation operation over these features, which are completely reclaimed from submerged area. That means we will now see American ships sailing within 12 nautical miles of this reclaimed islands, flying over them.
Next slide. Now, the low tide elevations and artificial islands of form a maritime zone if by reclamation they're raised above water high tide? No, because UNCLOS defines an island as a naturally formed area of land surrounded by water above water high tide. In fact, there's a specific provision in UNCLOS. Artificial islands, installation structures do not possess the status of islands. They are not islands. And because they are not islands, they have no territorial sea of their own, and they have no territorial airspace because they are not islands. So the Americans are correct. We will fly over them, we will sail just beside those islands because they are not islands. They are just structures illegally constructed. They don't even have a safety zone of 500 meters. Reclamations tamper with the evidence. How can we now prove to the tribunal that these features are low tide elevations when China has already covered them with sand? It's now above water at high tide permanently. How do we prove to the tribunal? We can still prove because we have submitted to the tribunal the nautical charts of China before the reclamation. And these nautical charts state that they are low tide elevations. Our own nautical charts state they are also low tide elevations, and the nautical charts of the UK, US, Japan, Russia, and Vietnam are also unanimous in saying there are low tide elevations. So we can still prove they are low tide elevations using China's own nautical charts. Now, can a state claim historic right to the EEZ or extend ownership of another state? China always says, oh, we own the South China Sea since thousands of years ago. How do we answer that? The Law of the Sea was negotiated from 1973 to 1982. It's quite a long period of time, and China actively participated. It was an active participant. At that time, countries claimed the varying economic zones. The US started it with a proclamation by Truman in 1946, claiming 200 nautical miles as the US exclusive economic zone. Chile and Peru followed and said, we have 500 nautical miles. Arab states followed, many countries followed. So it was a big mess from 1973 to 1982. Without a compromise on what will be the extent of the EEZ, there would be no law of the sea. So it was very crucial that all countries would compromise. And there was a big compromise agreed by everybody. China agreed. The agreement was everybody is entitled to 200 nautical mile EEZ, but must waive all historic claims to all other areas. Because if you continue with your historic claims, there will be no law of the sea. There will be fighting every time. So everybody agreed to waive all their historic claims and be content with 200 nautical mile EEZ. That's a very big area already. Because before the law of the sea, you could only claim 12 nautical miles. There was only the territorial sea. So everybody was happy. China was happy. But now China is saying, oh, we are entitled to 200 nautical mile EEZ, but we are also claiming all the rest of the South China Sea because of historic rights. They cannot do that anymore. That will mean a collapse of the law of the sea. In fact, there is a specific provision in the law of the sea. If the coastal state does not explore the continental shelf or exploit its natural resources, no one may undertake such activities without the express consent of the coastal state. If we don't do nothing with our EEZ, no one can touch it without our consent. And the continental shelf covers the EEZ and extended continental shelf. Automatically under UNCLOS, without any occupation, without any proclamation, we have a right to our EEZ and extended continental shelf. That's automatic. Next slide. Freedom of navigation. From here to here, there is freedom of navigation. That means merchant ships and warships can sail without seeking permission from the coastal state. China belongs to the small group of countries that holds that there is freedom of navigation here for merchant ships,
but not for warships. Warships, before sailing here, must secure permission from China. That is the big dispute between China and the US. However, recently, China sent its ships to the Mediterranean to conduct joint drills with the Russian Navy. And in the Mediterranean, there are no high seas, there are only overlapping EEZs. And China conducted naval drills without securing permission from the coastal state, contrary to their position. Recently, China also sent a naval task force to the Bering Sea and had joint drills with the Russian Navy. And in going to that sea and returning, China crossed the EEZ of the US Aleutian Islands and the territorial sea of the US Aleutian Islands without seeking permission from the US. The US just allowed them because then it looks like China is abandoning its position. It's now joining the majority of nations that hold there is freedom of navigation in the EEZ for both merchant ships and warships. And if that happens, then the dispute, big dispute between China and the US will be resolved. We are left with our own dispute with China over the natural resources. And we have to continue to protect our natural resources, even if the US and China come to an agreement. Next slide. The high seas have always been part of the global commons. Before or after UNCLOS, UNCLOS declares the high seas are open to all the states, whether coastal or landlocked. Freedom of the high seas comprise freedom of fishing. So, a landlocked country like Laos, Nepal, Austria have a right to fish in the high seas of the South China Sea. The US has a right to fish in the high seas of the South China Sea. UNCLOS declares no state may validly purport to subject any part of the high seas to its sovereignty. What has China done? China has said these are under the jurisdiction of Hainan. Any foreign fishing vessel wanting to fish here must secure their permission. So the US, all the countries in the world are real parties in interest to the dispute in the South China Sea because China has appropriated the global commons that belong to mankind. That's it. Those are the waters administered by the Hainan province, and it encloses the high seas of the South China Sea, comprising 20% of the South China Sea. Next slide. I call that the grand theft of the global commons because China is stealing from everyone what belongs to mankind. Here, this belongs to mankind. All the fish here belongs to mankind. That's what China said. You cannot fish. Next slide. Now let's go to the problem with Ito Aba. Ito Aba is the largest island in the Spratly, 46 hectares in area. Now our position is that Ito Aba cannot sustain human habitation of its own, so it cannot generate 200 nautical miles. It's only entitled to 12 nautical mile territorial sea, and therefore there is no overlap. We don't have to worry. But China insists this island is capable of human habitation, so it's entitled to 200 nautical miles. Let's assume it's entitled to 200 nautical miles. You say, what's the consequence for that? There will be an overlap. This is the overlap. Now, Ito Aba is only 1 kilometer coastline facing Palawan, while Palawan has 495 kilometers coastline facing Ito Aba. These are called, in jurisprudence of law of the sea, the relevant coastlines, because these are the coastlines which create the overlap. When you project the coastline from here, it will create an overlap. So this is the overlap. And what is the meaning when the coastline of Ito Aba is only 1 versus the coastline of Palawan 495? A ratio of 1:495. What is the significance of that? We go to the case of Nicaragua versus Colombia. Colombia recently decided in 2012 by the ICJ, and this is the official map of that decision. There is an island here called San Andres. It's huge. It's 2,600 hectares in size. twice as big as Boracay Island. Compare that to Ito Aba, just 46 hectares. So it's 56.5 times larger than Ito Aba. And both sides considered, Nicaragua and Colombia agreed that this is capable of human habitation. So it's entitled to an EEZ of 200 nautical miles. But Nicaragua has a coastline of 531 kilometers, and all of the islands here have a total coastline of 65 kilometers. The ratio is 1:8.2 in favor of Nicaragua. What is the significance of that? The ICJ said, because there is substantial disparity in the relevant coastlines, 1:8.2. All the waters here belong to Nicaragua. The distance is only 200 nautical miles, so there's an overlap, complete overlap. But the ICJ said, because the disparity is substantial, 1:8.2, all the waters here belong to Nicaragua, and the Colombian islands will be given an EEZ seaward. That's the ruling. Can you go back? And that means that all the waters here, because the ratio is 1:495, it's not only substantial, it's overwhelming, total disparity. So all the waters here will of course belong to Palawan. Ito Aba will be given EEZ seaward. So we're not worried, even if the tribunal will say it's capable of human habitation. In 2002, ASEAN and China signed a declaration of conduct and agreed that the South China Sea dispute shall be resolved in accordance with international law. And the primary law is the 1982 UNCLOS. So the dispute should be resolved in accordance with international law, and the primary law is UNCLOS. So what did we do? We filed our case with UNCLOS because that's the agreement. And what did China do? After we filed, China said that dispute should be resolved in accordance with historical facts and international law. We asked China, show us your historical facts. China said, we have abundant historical facts, but we will not show you. So we had to dig the records ourselves, and we looked at the ancient maps of China, the official and unofficial maps of China from 1136 during the Song Dynasty until the end of the Qing Dynasty 1912 showed the southernmost territory of China has always been Hainan Island, while our own maps show that from 1636 to 1933, Scarborough Shoal has always been part of the Philippines. Let's go to the maps. That's the oldest map of China I could find, 1136, map of China and the Barbarian countries. That's the title, and it shows Hainan Island as the southernmost territory of China. Why does this map still exist today? Because it is engraved in stone. And you can still see it today in the Museum of Stone Steels in Xi'an, China. It's still there. You can see it. Probably the oldest map in existence of China, showing that their southernmost territory was Hainan. And throughout the Chinese dynasties, Hainan was always the southernmost territory of China. We go fast forward, I cannot show you all the maps. This is the last official map of the Qing dynasty that I could find. The Qing dynasty was the last dynasty of China. It ended in 1912. And this map is called the Qing Empire's complete map of all provinces, and it shows Hainan Island as a southernmost territory. They have to put it in inset. Hainan Island has always been part of Guangdong during the dynasties. It became a separate province only in 1918. So, throughout the Chinese dynasties, their territory ended in Hainan, their southernmost territory. Next slide. How about the Philippines? I have many maps showing that Scarborough Shoal and the Spratlys belong to the Philippines earlier than 1734, but they were all unnamed. We have maps showing that the Spratlys, Scarborough Shoal belong to the Philippines, but the Spratlys had no name. They were just identified as a shoal. The Scarborough also. So this is the first map that ever gave a name to Scarborough Shoal, and the name is Panako. A Tagalog word means danger, because if the captain of the ship doesn't know where it is, the ship will hit the rocks, and the ship will run aground, and that's what happened to a British ship called called Scarborough, British tea clipper ship. It hit the rocks and ran aground, and European cartographers called it Scarborough Shoal. But that was much later than 1734. So we also, this is the first map that ever showed the Spratlys with a name, Los Bajos de Paragua. Paragua is the old Spanish name for Palawan, and the term Bajos means shoals, the shoals of Palawan. So China or Vietnam does not have an older map showing that Panakot or Scarborough Shoal belong, or Spratlys belong to them. There is no older map than this from China or Vietnam showing that the Spratlys or Scarborough Shoal are their territory. None. This is the oldest map showing these two shoals having a name, and they're named Filipino name, Spanish name. And this was printed in Manila by Father Murillo Velarde, and the one who engraved the map is Nicolas de la Cruz Bagay, a Filipino, very good artist, and the one who drew it was Francisco Suarez. 1734. Now in 1762, the British invaded Manila, they looted Manila, and when they left, they carted away the copper plates of this map, brought it to London, and reissued the map. And the Duke of Northumberland bought a map that was issued there, and last November it was auctioned by Sotheby's, and a Filipino bought it. I asked a friend of mine to buy it on the condition that he will resell it at cost to the National Museum, because I wanted it permanently exhibited in the National Museum, so that our school children will see that Panakot belonged to the Philippines as early as 1734. The Spratlys belong to the Philippines as early as 1734, and they have been taken away from us, and it's their duty that someday they should reclaim it in accordance with international law. So that map is coming back to the Philippines soon. We go now to the American period. The Americans came to the Philippines in 1898, and the following year they came out with this map. United States Coast and Geodetic Survey, and there it is, Bajo de Masinloc, Scarborough Shoal. Scarborough Shoal is part of the Philippines from the time the Americans set foot in the Philippines. And they acknowledge that, and there are many other maps of the US showing Scarborough Shoal as part of the Philippines. Of course, there was this standoff in Scarborough Shoal, and the Americans said, we do not take sides in territorial disputes in the South China Sea. That's why I asked them, can you please clarify what are those islands? Because you should refer only to the paracels and the Spratlys. Don't refer to other islands, because we have 7,000 islands. One of them is Scarborough Shoal. And I hope they will make that clarification, because without that clarification, China will be emboldened to move on other of our islands. Next slide. When the Qing dynasty ended in 1912, the Republicans under Dr. Sun Yat-sen, of course, established the Republic of China, and they had several constitutions. And their first 5 constitutions stayed. The first constitution, the territory of the Republic of China, is composed of 22 provinces. Remember, one of the 22 provinces is Guangdong, and it ended in Hainan, the southernmost territory. Show next slide. That's the territory of the Qing dynasty, the last dynasty. Next slide. Now, this is now clarified in the 1914 Constitution. It states the territory of the Republic of China continues to be the territory of the former empire. What is the meaning of former empire? That was clarified by a book released by the People's Republic of China in 1999, saying that former empire refers to the Qing dynasty. Why? Because during the Qing dynasty, Tibet formed part of China, and China wanted to prove that Tibet was always part of China. But that same map shows that the southernmost territory of China is Hainan Island. And that's, they are caught in a bind. This is an official book issued by the People's Republic of China. It's available in Amazon.com. And it says, the territory of the Republic of China continues to be territory of the Roman former empire and referring to the Qing dynasty. That's the editorial comment of an official publication of the People's Republic of China. So the same, the 1924, 37, 46 Constitution of China, still the same. The traditional boundaries, the territory, only the past, traditional territory. Next slide. In 1932, the French seized the paracels. And this is now the start of the creeping invasion by China. China sent a note verbal to the French government protesting the French occupation. This is a note verbal, 1932. And it says, after describing the amphitrite groups and the western groups of the crescent, these groups lie 145 nautical miles from Hainan Island and form the southernmost part of Chinese territory. This is a statement by China, official statement, that their southernmost territory are the paracels, because they said the paracels are part of Hainan. They now tweak a little the interpretation of Hainan to include the paracels. But if you look at the map that I issued the following year, that's Hainan, and you see the paracels now. That's the start of the creeping invasion, but it does not jive with their constitution, because their constitutions up to 1946 states that the territory of the Republic of China is that of the former empire. But that's the start of the creeping invasion. But what's important for us is this is an official announcement by China to the world that their southernmost territory constitute the paracels, not the Spratlys, not Scarborough Shoal. But of course, they kept on expanding and creeping. Now, if you go to the Chinese Embassy website in Manila, you will find this statement. Wangyang Island was first discovered and due to China's map in China's Yuan dynasty. In 1279, Chinese astronomer Gu Sujing performed surveying of the seas around China for Kublai Khan, and Wangyang Island was chosen as a point in the South China Sea. Kublai Khan was the first emperor of the Mongol dynasty after the Mongols conquered China. There was this Mongol dynasty that ruled China for 99 years. First emperor is Kublai Khan, and according to the story, Kublai Khan sent Gu Sujing to Scarborough Shoal to put up an observatory in Scarborough Shoal. That's the statement of China here. However, in 1980, China and Vietnam quarreled over the paracels because Vietnam happens to have a lot of historical documents showing that they own the paracels. So China said, we have an older document. Kublai Khan sent Gu Sujing to the paracels to put up that observatory. And this was published officially in Beijing Review as an official document of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. Next slide. And it says, that statement, astronomical observation point Nanhai was on the Sija Island. It shows that Sija Islands were in the bounds of China at the time of the Yuan dynasty. So, China told the Vietnamese we own paracels because Gu Sujing went there to put up an observatory. Now, Gu Sujing was a brilliant guy. He was an engineer, mathematician, astronomer. He was the equivalent of Leonardo da Vinci of China at the time. He built 27 observatories, 26 on mainland China and 1 in the South Sea. South Sea is called Nanhai. Nanhai is the Chinese word for South Sea. And according to the Chinese in 1980, that one observatory constructed in Nanhai was in the paracels. So we own the paracels. Now that they have the paracels, they're telling the Philippines, that observatory was in Scarborough Shoal. We own Scarborough Shoal. Now, as I said, this guy, brilliant guy, constructed 27 observatories, 26 mainland China, 1 in Nanhai. He built 26 on the mainland. 1 still exists today in Henan province. You can see it there. It's huge, 12.6 meter high. And there is a sundial here. To operate this, you have to be there every day.
to take measurements, and their equipment here. Could he have put it on Scarborough Shoal? That's Scarborough Shoal, 1.2 meters above water at high tide. The Asian man is just 5 to 6 feet at sea. So, if possible, he was never in Scarborough Shoal. If he was able to do that, that would have been a greater engineering feat than the construction of the Great Wall of China. Now, last September 2014, something astonishing happened. President Ma was a guest speaker in an exhibit by the Kuomintang Party of the documents that led to the creation of the 9-dash lines. The 9-dash lines were invented by China when China was under the control of the Kuomintang Party. So it was the invention of the Kuomintang in 1947. 1949, the China nationalists fled the mainland and went to Taiwan and brought all the records. So on that day of the exhibit, the records were there. And President Ma said, the 9-dash lines was a claim limited only to the islands and their adjacent 3 nautical mile territories. Ma said there were no claims to so-called regions. So Ma was saying, at that time, there was only a territorial sea. There were no EEZs at the time that came in 1982. We only claimed the territorial sea. We did not claim anything else. We claimed the islands and the territorial sea. Wonderful. President Ma has aligned the interpretation of Taiwan in accordance with UNCLOS because that is precisely what UNCLOS says. If you have an island, you can claim maritime zones, 12 nautical mile. If you can show human habitation of its own, then 200 nautical mile EEZ. Why did Ma say that? Ma turned out to be a doctor of laws, and he earned his doctor of laws from Harvard, and he specialized in the law of the sea. In October of 2014, he was interviewed by the New York Times, and he said, there is a basic principle in the law of the sea: land dominates the sea, marine claims begin with land. Marine claims begin with land means before you can claim a maritime zone, you must have land. You always start from land. The 9-dash lines do not start from land. That's why that statement attacks the interpretation of PROC, that the 9-dash line is a claim to all the waters enclosed by the lines. There is now a great schism between PROC and Taiwan on the interpretation of the 9-dash lines, and fortunately, it was the Kuomintang Party that created the 9-dash lines. Communists just inherited it. So the originator is saying we never intended to claim the entire sea. Now, if President Ma does not recant his statement and he is able to convince the PROC to adopt that interpretation, he deserves, and I nominate him as the next Nobel Peace Prize. Because with that kind of interpretation, the dispute in the South China Sea is reduced from 85.7% of the waters to just the islands and the territorial sea. That's just 5% in my calculation. We can live with that kind of dispute. Next slide. Now, what is our legal basis for claiming Scarborough Shoal? The 1898 Treaty of Paris created those lines, famous treaty lines, and Spain said everything, all islands within the lines are ceded to the US. The US paid $20 million. Unfortunately, Scarborough Shoal lies outside the treaty lines. That's why China is saying we don't own Scarborough Shoal because it's not there in the treaty lines. But many people forget there was a second treaty in 1900, Treaty of Washington, and that treaty between Spain and the US stated all title and claim of title which Spain may have. Claim of title refers to the Spratlys. All title and claim of title which Spain may have had at the time of the conclusion of the Treaty of Peace of Paris to any or all islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines were ceded by Spain to the US. So that's it.
Why did they enter into this second treaty? Because when the Americans came, they found out there were many islands outside of the treaty lines. Islands in the Batanes, in the south, and of course, Carpio Shoal. So they made that second treaty. That's the basis for the cession of Scarborough Shoal to the Philippines. And it happens to include claim of title. We still have that claim of title, which the claim of title was handed down by Spain to the US in the treaty. And of course, we inherited that from the US. So we have a claim of title also to the Spratly. In 1938, the Commonwealth government in the Philippines, run by Filipinos, they had this foresight. They were afraid that other countries might claim Scarborough Shoal. So they said, let's put a lighthouse to assert our ownership. So they wrote a letter to Secretary Colonel Hull of the US asking for permission, and of course the issue was, is that part of Philippine territory? And this is the reply of Secretary Colonel Hull. Because of the absence of other claims, the shoal should be recorded as included among the islands ceded to the US by the American-Spanish Treaty of November 7. That's the Treaty of Washington. So there's an official acknowledgement by the State Department of the US. Scarborough Shoal belongs to the Philippines. But what happened in November 2012, the US said, we don't take sides in territorial disputes. Next slide. What is China's core objection? I'm winding up my presentation. This is the core objection of China. China said we will not participate, but China submitted a position paper to the tribunal. But it said, this is not participation, we just want you to know our position. And China said, the dispute that we brought before UNCLOS was a dispute of maritime delimitation between two states under Article 298. A dispute of maritime delimitation between two states. In other words, two states delimit their maritime boundary if they're overlapping territorial sea, overlapping EEZ, and overlapping extended coastal shelf. Let's go to the specific article, Article 298. It says, Article 298 allows exclusion from compulsory arbitration of dispute concerning the interpretation or application of Articles 15, 74, and 83 relating to sea boundary delimitations. Article 15, delimitation of the territorial sea between states with opposite coasts. So there must be overlapping territorial sea for this article to apply. Article 74, delimitation of the exclusive economic zone between states with opposite coasts. Opposite coasts. There must be overlapping EEZ. Here, Article 83, delimitation of the continental shelf between opposite coasts. There must be overlapping EEZ. Are there overlapping maritime zones between China and the Philippines? This is the territorial sea of China, 12 nautical miles from their coast. This is our territorial sea. There is no overlap. This is the EEZ of China. This is our EEZ. No overlap. How about the extended continental shelf? The opposite coastal state from Palawan is Vietnam. There is no, China is so far away, there could be no overlapping extended continental shelf. This, if you project the extended continental shelf of Vietnam, of China, it will be here. Our extended continental shelf will be here. So that enough is sufficient. There is no overlap in this area, and we don't have to prove overlap in all areas. We only have to prove overlap in a substantial area, and that's more than substantial. How about here? If China claims this as its extended continental shelf, it will overlap with our extended continental shelf, probably here. But are we claiming? We are not yet claiming, because there is here a trench, Manila Trench. It's a very deep trench, a deep trench. It will prevail. It will break the natural prolongation of the continental shelf, so we're not yet claiming. But even if we claim, there will be a minor overlap, but that will not matter, because there's a huge overlap here. There is a huge area here where there can never be an overlap. So that's how we explain it to the tribunal. And for my information, we should be hearing on the learning of a decision on the jurisdictional issue before the end of this month. Next slide.
Now, why is it important to apply UNCLOS to the South China Sea dispute?
Because if you don't apply UNCLOS to the South China Sea dispute, then UNCLOS will not apply to any maritime dispute, any part of the world. And that will mean what will rule the sea will be the rule of the naval canon, no longer the rule of law. There will be a naval arms race among coastal states, and that's happening now in the South China Sea.
I end with this question. Grotius is the founder of the law of the sea. He laid the foundation of the law of the sea in his book, Mare Liberum, the Free Sea. Now, will the world community allow a single state to rewrite the law of the sea so the single state can exercise indisputable sovereignty to almost an entire sea, subject the high seas to its sovereign jurisdiction, and seize large areas of our coastal states' easements, which are the legal maritime entitlements, they both customary international entities. With that, thank you for your patience. We can thank